Welcome back to the AEC video series on settings. In this video we're going to cover the Customize tab of AEC settings. So if we go to Components, AEC Central, it'll come up, and then we're going to click on the Settings icon, and let's take a look at the Customize tab. The first thing is the date formatting. The default formatting for AEC, for example, in the back end, as you can see here, it shows Thursday, 03 March 2011, and then the time. You can change that, for example, if you wanted to, just to show month, day, and year format by hitting apply. And then as you can see in the back end, when we refresh the page, it now shows it in that particular format. In order to take a look, and we'll post this underneath the video, but the actual URL for instructions on this, we use the standard PHP, but the manual itself is right here, and it's the strf time function. And this will give you an idea of the different layouts that you can use to display the time in AEC. Now let's go back to the Customize tab. Okay, some servers actually use a proxy. Very seldom, but in some hosting situations you'll have one. And the proxy has certain restrictions on outgoing traffic. You know, if AEC calls another website or services, such as calling PayPal or something along those lines. If your server requires that you use a proxy when calling other sites, you would set this to yes and then fill in all the information below. Now, AEC by default will log the host with the IP address, which means when a person signs up, it will also log their IP address. In some inexpensive shared hosting, this can take over a minute. And if that's the case, then what you want to do is actually disable log the host with the IP. Now, AEC, when you actually go in and a person actually goes to their My Subscription screen, they're going to see item details along these lines. And you can actually restrict what they can see here. For example, if I say no renew button, and I set that to yes, and I hit apply, you're going to notice when I'm in the front end on my overview, the renew button disappears. So in order for me to buy anything else, I would actually have to have a link somewhere on the site to go to the subscriptions. AEC by default, in the default configuration, will actually set it up so a person doesn't see the renew button unless they've already expired. Now, in some cases where you're selling multiple subscriptions, where you want the person to be able to upgrade while they're in another one, you can actually control that from here. So you can set no renew button to no, restrict renew button. You would set to yes if you don't want them to actually be able to renew. Now renew if they have an active valid subscription. The continue button is a button that I usually set to no, but you may want to set it to yes. But if a person's expired, what we'll do is if they click on the continue button from the My Subscriptions overview, it will automatically take them to purchase the last plan that they had that expired. Now we come over to price formatting. You can tell AEC whether to use a currency symbol, like for example the $ for US dollars. If it's set to no, it'll actually use USD. You can tell it whether to put the currency symbol first or not. And you can actually tell it whether to use a comma or not, for example, for euros. AEC by default in the invoice number format, both in the back and front end, has a very long random generated alphanumeric invoice. That's what ties the processor between AEC and the payment processor itself, like a unique ID as to what the subscription is. If you want to show it differently to the user in the front end of the site, what you can actually do is set this to yes. And we've already set up the formatting so that it would be the date and then the subscription ID number. So for example, if it was the first subscription in the year 2012 and you set this to yes, the subscription ID would actually end up being 2012-001. Now if we come into the My Subscriptions and a person looks at their invoice details, you can see here now the invoice number is actually numbered by the year and then by the subscription ID in that year. But then in the default layout itself, let's get back to our settings screen, Customize tab, and if I set that to no, and then I hit apply, and I come back to the My Memberships, and let's refresh the screen. Then it's actually going to show invoices and billing dates in the long format that you'd normally see in the back end of AEC itself. And you can see the default formatting if you go into the back end and you actually take a look at the subscriber screen. You can see this is the default invoice formatting that AEC uses itself. So you can actually change that for the default formatting itself here in the Customize tab of the AEC settings. AEC will allow you to use reCAPTCHA if you're using Joomla registration only. This only works with Joomla registration. If you're using Community Builder or Job Social or K2, it won't. But you can actually set this to yes and then put in your reCAPTCHA keys here to put in reCAPTCHA on the registration form itself. This covers the Customize tab of the AEC settings. Thank you very much.